Hello, everybody. Here we go. I think this is number 278. Ooh, look at my hair. I was just outside laying in the grass with my kittens. I say kittens, they're old. All right, we've got two questions to start with. Hello, Sean. Um, Sean says, in one of your videos I recently watched, you said something about practicing the tonalization studies the right way. I think those were your words. Can you talk about that? Yes, I can talk about that. The reason why I say that is there are some people that don't fully understand the tonalization concept. So they try to do the first one in every key because that's what so many trumpet teachers teach, what so many jazz musicians teach, so many that they do one exercise in every key and then they go to the next one. Another one is, and you don't get the benefit from that. The benefit of doing the tonalization studies is greatly reduced when you practice that way. The idea is to, instead of doing every key every day, the idea is to do all the ones that you're going to do in that key at one time. And if you're not doing that, it's not tonalization studies. If you're not doing it that way, don't call it tonalization studies. It has to be start at number 1, go to number 20, and do it that way, all in the same key. So this also covers people who do what I call jumping around. Do a few in this key, do a few in that key. Maybe they're doing them in one key in one day. Maybe they're doing that. But there's no organization to it. The whole point of the tonalization studies is to have structure to this process. Another thing is the tonalization studies are not supposed to be drilled. If you didn't get it right, if it wasn't to your satisfaction, there's no benefit in playing it again and again and again and again and again. And if you find that you are doing it, if you find that you do need to repeat it a bunch of times in talking about the single exercise, right? Let's say you're on number 5 in the system and it doesn't go to your liking and you are doing number 5 again. It's not so hot, do it again. Not so hot, do it again. Not so hot. That's not how this works. If you find that you have to do that, you probably did not do the expansion studies first. And so here's the other thing is with the expansion studies, I think a lot of people don't take those expansion studies seriously. So that, and what do I mean by seriously? I mean that if they make a few mistakes here and there, oh, well, it's no big deal. No, there should be no mistakes in the expansion studies. There should be, your accuracy rate in the expansion studies should be somewhere near 99.9%. So yes, maybe a note slips out that you had a brain fart or something and something went wrong. If you're having something go wrong in the expansion studies, then you're not paying attention. So yes, if the key is hard enough that you're struggling with it even at a slow tempo, then you should have done the expansion studies. And if you did the expansion study the way they're supposed to be, with 10 reps on each exercise, if you did it that way, you shouldn't have problems in the tonalization studies. So when we have a wrong note, when I say wrong note, I mean wrong fingering. When we have a wrong fingering in the tonalization studies, we don't go back to the beginning. We do stop. Let's say you're doing the F, and you miss the F on the way down and you play B natural. Stop. Back up to the cell before that B. So if the B natural that you played, if it was on the one that starts on B flat, B flat, B flat, C, D, right? If you played B natural there, back up to the one that starts on C, C, D, B flat, and start slow. Because what we're fixing there is not the note. Nobody fixes a note. You don't fix notes, you fix patterns. And the only time we play that note wrong is when the pattern is wrong. So you back up to the previous cell so that you have that pattern. We're trying to learn a pattern. We're not trying to learn notes. Okay? So those are just a few of what I mean when I say that. Those are just a few of you could call them rules. The older I get, the more I can call that a rule. I don't know. Anyway, so yes, that's what I mean. Um, and each one of those is equally important. Each one of those that I just said is equally important. All right. Cardo says, "Hi Eddie, hope you are doing well. How can we know that our mouthpiece size is the best for us? I really think the only way is to try different sizes." And if that's what you're saying, how when you're trying different sizes do you know which one is the best one? My very first thing that I look for is comfort on the chops. That's the very first thing I'm looking for. Now, I have had students that when I size them, they're comfortable with just about everything. So, and I think that's a real thing. But most people know. Most people, uh, smaller is going to be more comfortable. Bigger is going to be more comfortable. It really depends on their teeth structure and the the thickness of their lips and all of that sort of stuff. So that's the first thing I'm looking for, is that the mouthpiece feels comfortable on the face. And think of it this way, if it's not comfortable, isn't that a form of musical torture? What are you going to do if it's not comfortable? Maybe you think that you'll grow to like it. Maybe that's how you're thinking. Good luck with that. Right? Good luck with that. Um, yeah, so it should well, I'm talking about, let me grab my mouthpiece. I'm talking about making the embouchure. If you have to do a buzz to make sure the embouchure is a real one, right? And then put your mouthpiece and just put it on there and ask yourself, does that feel comfortable? So then you get the other mouthpiece and you put that on. Does that feel comfortable? Which of the two feels more comfortable? And there's no buzzing through the mouthpiece at this point. You're just putting it on and you're asking yourself, how does that feel? That's always the first step when I size somebody. That's always the first step, is we're looking for comfort. And that's how, so what we're looking for is the most comfortable inner rim diameter. We're looking for the most comfortable inner rim diameter. Now, there are students that are the opposite of what I said. There are students, yes, like what I said, that feel comfortable with just about everything. And then I have students that don't feel comfortable with anything because of their teeth structure. They don't feel comfortable with any. Then you have to look at uh, looking at the less of two evils, right? Looking at which one is at least more comfortable than the others. Does that make sense? So, Cardo asks, what are the expansion studies? I actually made these exercises up. I started teaching the tonalization studies early in my career. I started teaching in 80. I made up the tonalization studies in like 84. And by 85, I was already teaching them. And then I had some band students that came to me and said, Mr. Lewis, we have chair tests tomorrow. How do we prepare the skills? And these would have been students that hadn't gone through all the skills yet in the tonalization studies. So when I made this exercise up, it was just to get them to be able to master their band skills. By the way, we have two different books for this, right? We have two different books. We have the band scale expansion studies, and then we have the major scale expansion studies. And the difference is that the band scale expansion studies are the old exercises that I taught my students when this came up. But the more I worked with the expansion studies in the band context, the more I realized that this is the best first step before you learn the tonalization studies. Let's pick a difficult key, what some people would consider difficult. We're going to start with on E. We're going to go from the E to the D sharp and back up and treat it like a long tone. Okay, and when you're doing this, you should be staring at the music. If you don't have the expansion studies in book form, you can just look at your scales or you can write it out in pencil. So we're going to go E, D sharp, E. This is for the E major scale. Then we're going to sing and finger. Da, da, da. Then we're going to play it again. We're going to do this 10 times. So I did that. We're going to pretend I did that 10 times. Then we go to the next note. Now, when we start adding new notes, each of the new notes is supposed to have a fermata on it. Da, 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 Notice two things. I want you to notice two things about this. I want you to notice how slow this is. I want you to play this exercise peacefully. I want there to be no rush, no wiggling around in your chair, don't allow boredom to set in. Allow your mind to wander. The only time we don't let our mind wander is when we're adding a new note. Make sure you have the right fingering for that note. Look it up on the fingering chart if you have to. But after you've played that first one, allow your mind to wander. That is, when I talk about the proper way to do these things, that is the proper way. Allow your mind to wander. Forget all of this stuff that they say about mindfulness in your practice time. Forget it. You're going to be more benefited in this exercise after you do the first one. Be mindful on the first one, right? Then let your mind wander. All right, so we do 10 of those. Now we add the B, do 10 of those. We add the A, do 10 of those. We add the F sharp, or the G sharp, do 10 of those. We add the F sharp, do 10 of those. Very calm and peaceful. Do 10 of those. Now, here's another thing worth mentioning. It's not likely that you'll finish one scale in one day. It's not likely. Most people don't have that kind of time. If you can in one day, that's fine. But mark how far you've gotten. Mark how far you've gotten. If you got the exercise number 5, somehow mark that you finished number 5. And tomorrow or the next time that you practice, I would say we're going to start at number 6, but because we're starting over again, I want you to go back to number 1, but only do from 1 through 5, only do those 1 each. Then when you get to 6, start doing 10 again. So you can think of 1 each as the warm-up for those, for the number 6. Anyway, so let's say, hypothetically, I finished going down. Now I'm going to start adding notes ascending. Notice that the F sharp The upper F sharp is what I'm playing long now. This is if you have to learn a scale overnight. See, that's not what the tonalization studies are for. The tonalization studies are not a quick fix. The tonalization studies are for total mastery. I'm going to say that again. The tonalization studies are for total mastery. So this other thing, this expansion study is, although it works great to get you ready for the tonalization studies, it also works great for you to learn a new skill. Now, I would recommend, if it's a skill like for band, buy the band expansion studies instead of the other one. Now, this one you don't need a book for what I'm showing you. So let's say after we do 10 of the F sharp, now we're going to do G sharp. I want you to see how calm what I just did was. Every time, if we have a practice technique, and I do consider tonalization studies a practice technique, I do consider the expansion studies a practice technique. If you have a proven practice technique, a practice technique that actually works, you don't have to hurry it up. In fact, if you do hurry it up, you will get less benefit. There are people who say, not me, but there are people who say, and maybe I have said it, but I don't mean it the way that the other people say it. There are people who say that it's like meditating. And this should be everything that you practice. Everything that you practice, there should always be a technique to it. And because there is a technique to it, there's no trying. We talked about that before. There's no trying. There's no effort. You don't have to try harder to get the music right. If you use the technique properly, it's all very, very, very easy. So you can, in everything that you do, practice in a way that is so incredibly calm and peaceful that you almost fall asleep. Right? So anyway, yes, that's the expansion studies. And you really, nowadays, when I work with beginners, we do the expansion studies on every scale now. And it makes a huge difference. Sean says, thank you. Well, you're welcome. Hello, Seppo. Nice to see you. All right. Any other questions? Those were two good questions. Three good questions. What else do we got? What other questions do you have? Oh, by the way, Seppo, I'm almost done with the last movement. I don't know if you're still here. I'm almost done with the Sanctus. Seppo says, what kind of trumpet videos would you show to your young students? Most of the videos I would want them to see are trumpet players playing um, by themselves. It's great to hear them in an ensemble. And I do try to find as many. I have on my website, I have a playlist. Well, it's actually a YouTube playlist, but the best way to get there is on my website. You go to the front page on the website, eddielewis.com, you scroll down and you look for the trumpet student listening assignments or listening list or something like that. And I try to put as much exposed trumpet stuff in there. It is actually kind of hard to find trumpets. I don't actually recommend my own videos because I've got and the older I get, the worse it is, right? I've got my own way of doing things. I have my own style. I have my own like how my sound is. I've got my own sound. Um, it's gotten to the point that unless somebody really, really, really wants to play like me, but that should not be driven by me. That should be driven by their own experiences. And it is true. I have had students that started taking lessons because they like how I play and they want to be like that. And that's fine. That's fine. But if it's just somebody that's just signing up because I don't know, whatever reason, whatever other reason, okay, I won't go into the other reasons, but for whatever reason that they sign up and it's not because they like the way I play, I don't have them listen to my stuff. I would rather have them listen to the listening assignments that I post. I think I've got over 300 videos in that. Let me double check here. Let me grab that and pull it up here. Playlists. It's called Trumpet Student Listening Assignments. I can put the link here. Trumpet Student Listening Assignments. I just keep adding more and more and more. It's got 353 videos in it. It has 2,600 views. And not a bit of it is my own playing. So that's who I have them listen to. I prefer when they very first start off, the beginners, I prefer them to do listening that is more just the trumpet player by itself. No, let me see if I can find one in this list like that. No other ensemble. But like I said, okay, so here's one. So let me put this in. The first one on my list that comes up is Brandon Ridnar. This is the kind of stuff I would have them listen to. Even though it's very technical, I want them to listen to this kind of stuff because it's just the trumpet by itself. That's right. So Seppo says the problem here in Finland seems to be that because the existing culture having trumpet in it is so weak that the students do not know where is the aim. And this is the kind of stuff. Now on the jazz side, I start everybody with that recording of Clark Terry and Red Mitchell. Am I getting that right? Clark Terry and Red Mitchell. Let me pull that up and see. I might be wrong with the name. I thought it was, yes. Okay. So all the stuff, the original, oh, like they've got another album. The album I have them listen to is, and I'll put the link here. I have them listen to this album for the jazz stuff. But you know who else is a great person to listen to, that does wonderful recordings with him by himself, is that trumpet teacher in the UK. Um, Once again, the reason I emphasize his recordings, not just because he's such an awesome player, but because he's putting recordings out of etudes and excerpts and stuff like that. Yeah, my search is not coming up. I wish I could remember names better than I do. Um, this guy in the UK, I think, should be at the top of everybody's list. Here he is. His his channel is called The Trumpet Prof. His name is Paul Myers. I'll put his channel in here. This is another big one that I have the the beginners listen to. He's got Arbin etudes. He's got um yeah, he's just got a bunch of. Now I guess he hasn't posted in a while. But yes, that his oh, wait a second. I think he's got two. Let me look up Paul Myers. I think he's got two channels. Yeah, and it might be the other one. Oh, Paul Mays, not Myers. Paul Mays. It's under his. Let me put that channel on now. But this one's even got older videos. Still, the video on the video is not going to get old, right? Great trumpet playing is great trumpet playing. So yeah, and he's got one of his students is Lucy Humphreys, and so he's got some videos of her on there. This is yeah, this is some great playing that I think all the students should listen to. See if I have any more that come up. Now, Trumpet and like the Brandenburg Concerto and stuff like that, they can listen to that. Yeah, so this is, but I do strongly recommend also the playlist because I've been assembling that playlist for a long, long, long time. It's got great jazz, it's got great um, classical stuff, and you can listen for hours and hours and hours, and it's all just great music. Um, Even a little bit of salsa, and there's that Orchestra Daniela from Romania. I think she's from Romania. I have some of hers in there. So yes, it's actually worth checking out. Any other questions? I hope that answers your question. What other questions do you have? I can't stress enough how much you should strive for peace in your practice time. If you've got any anxiety, it's working against you. And I would much rather talk about it that way than to talk about body tension. I think body tension is just a distraction. When they talk about it like the way they do, it's just a distraction. More important to have peaceful practice times. That peace will erase every bit of anxiety that you've got, and your playing will improve as a result. Any other questions? Oh, Seppo said these are really valuable links from. Thank you. I have been showing just brief clips from Disney recording sessions with very strong players like Wayne Bergeron, but do not know if it would be scary. Great music is great music. And I think if you can inspire them with stuff like that, that's fine. I do have a tendency to stay away from trying to entertain them. And that's, I'm not telling you that's how you should be. Um, that whole thing trying to entertain them never works for me. I think the best thing that you can do to motivate the students, especially the young ones, is to let them see how they're progressing. And this is why sometimes teachers that just keep pounding them and pounding and pounding and just say, oh, that's terrible. That's not good enough. Come on, people, step up, right? You hear all this kind of language. Now, don't get me wrong. I also don't believe in the opposite of that. I also don't believe in, oh, you did so well, right? I don't believe in that either. I believe in telling them the truth, giving them a, so it's not speaking harshly, it's not speaking kindly. I believe in telling them the truth. And here's the thing, there's always progress that you can point out. There's always progress you can point out. If and I shouldn't say it this way, but that's what the words that's coming to my mind. If you can't see progress in the students 1 week to the next, you got a problem. Your teaching is somehow um, corrupted. You cannot be a great teacher without being able to see even the smallest improvement. And it's important that when they do, especially when there's so much that they're doing badly, it's important to tell them what they did correctly. This, in my opinion, and I can't speak for anybody else, but this, in my opinion, is what motivates them to do more. And if all you are ever told, if all you ever told is that you're just not good enough, you're just not pulling it off, you've got so far to go, that kills all of it. That kills all the motivation. And you know why it kills it? Because you start to think that there's no way you can do this. You start to think that this is way over my head. Nothing I do makes a difference. Nothing I do makes a difference. So why am I even going to try? This is what happens when we don't tell the truth. And it is not truthful. If you have a student that sounds really, really, really bad, it is not truthful to only tell them how bad they are. There is always, every person has value. Every person's music, therefore, also has value. And it is extremely important. My students know just how critical I can be. But it's not criticism for criticism's sake. I tell them the truth. I tell them the truth. I don't know how, I have to say that over and over and over again. That's the most important thing. I see my glasses are like wonky. Kevin says, Mr. Lewis, what would you advise to overcome a bit of anxiety, nervousness before playing in front of other people? The most important, this is my biggest, when it comes to stage fright and performance anxiety, the biggest discovery I've made in my career is that anxiety in the practice time leads to anxiety in performance. That's not the only thing that causes it. That's not the only cause, but 90% of the time, in my experience, 90% of the time, anxiety on stage comes from anxiety in practice. Now, if you need to practice being in front of people, because there are some people that are they just have a hang up of being in front of other people, then you go in increments, right? You find someone you trust and you play for them. And then you find 3 or 4 people, like, next time you're at a social gathering, like, next time you're, visiting your sister, say, "Hey, everybody, I wanna play something for you." I'm not suggesting you should do that, I'm saying that's the kind of thing you can do. But, yes, the biggest thing is to, get rid of the anxiety in the practice time. Now, here's something that also I had to discover for myself the hard way. If you know that in the Bible it says, "Judge not, that ye be not judged." I have a belief or a theory or whatever you wanna call it. I believe that that judgment is specific. So, for example, if you don't judge people for drinking, then you're not gonna be judged for drinking. If you do judge people for drinking, you yourself will be judged for drinking. This is a theory of mine. It's not theological. It's not from the Bible. It's not biblical. But the way I see it happening in my life. So, how do we apply that to the music? If you judge people who are playing trumpet and you say, "Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible." If that's part of your lifestyle, then you should stop that. Because if you truly want to perform on stage and not feel condemned, then you shouldn't be condemning people, musically speaking. It's okay to say, "I like this, I don't like that." That's not the same thing. To say that someone is a terrible trumpet player invites judgment on you and your trumpet playing. Does that make sense? Seppo says, "By the way, the Musta Hevonen is going to have a rehearsal this Sunday for Americana for the renewed roster. I look forward to having good results from it." Wonderful. Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. Kevin says, "Thank you. I attended the opening mic night at the community jazz band last night. They were all super nice, but I was invited to play with a couple of others. I was encouraged to take a few bars." Nobody was judgy at all, but I was a bit nervous for the first couple of bars until I got going. All right. All right. I'm glad you did that. What song did you play? What song did you play? Secret Love by Chuck Mangione. Huh. So was it a jam session or was it a big band? Oh, I get it. So so you didn't play the head. They just asked you to improvise. Maybe you said that earlier. Oh, look. Now the screen is as blurry as my eyes without the glasses, huh? Ah, sorry about that. Let's get this. Oh, I forgot I taped that down. Oh, it's back. All right. Maybe that's telling me to put my glasses back on. Well, I'm glad you did that, Kevin. Congratulations. That the first one is always the hardest. You know what I used to say? I used to say I practice my jazz stuff. Then I go to the jam session to see what worked and what didn't work. It was always a back and forth. Um, I went to jam sessions religiously from 1980-ish until I guess the late 90s. I went to jam sessions all the time, and that's how I saw it. You know, you practice, 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 practice. Go to the jam session, play, and then based on how it went at the jam session, make adjustments to how you're practicing. Oh, I get it. So it actually was a big band, and you played in the section, and then three of you took solos. That's wonderful. Right. He says they did three of the songs you mentioned when I asked which ones jam sessions look at. That's right. It's pretty predictable, except for. So that's what I'm saying. We were talking about this in your lesson. Um, there are some songs that come up everywhere, but each different group of people has their own favorites, and those you can't predict. Now, what I used to do when I went to the jam sessions, I used to always have my notepad, and if they called a song I didn't know, I would write the name of that song in my notepad, and I would know it by the time I went again. And maybe they didn't play it the next time, but I would be ready if they did. Any other questions? Oh, there you go. He says he's checking them off in the real book for index for next time. I think that might be how I used to do it. I used to put a star or something next to the title in the real book after I wrote it down. And so you guys don't know about this. My when I have a pad in my pocket, that's all temporary. I get home and then I do with that information what needs to be done with it. So from the pad, I would go to the real book and put a star on the title. Then later, I started doing digital where I had a database and I kept track of all my songs in the database. Seppo says, "Do you teach pedal tones, or do those in your routinal practice?" Yeah, it's part of. So there are times when we would do pedal tones outside of the routine, but it's kind of rare. So normally it's just part of the routine. But there are times, and it usually has to do with stiffness, um, especially like this time of the year when everybody's lips are getting dried up and chapped, and it's very important to play pedal tones. Now, keep in mind, if you are, and I'm not saying this about you, Seppo, but anybody who hears what I'm saying and is a inflammation-based trumpet player, you do not want to do pedal tones at all. Just letting you know that. Do not do pedal tones. Whew. So have you guys been listening to my new album, the Trumpet Meditations? I know Kevin is because I saw him buy it from our website. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate that. How about the rest of you? I wouldn't mind getting some feedback about the album. This is bleeding again. Yeah, if you have any feedback about the album, send me an email or something. Kevin says, yes, your album is excellent. It's good for listening while cooking and grilling. All right. I'm glad to hear it. To my knowledge, there's no album like that. To my knowledge, um, 16 tracks of just solo trumpet improvising. And even if there were, the styles, one of my students came in and he says, I listened to your album. He says, oh, look, we're in Ireland. He goes, oh, look, we're in Italy now. Oh, look, we're in Africa. And to have that many different styles in improv. Don't get me wrong, I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just saying that there's nothing like it out there. To my knowledge, there's nothing like it. I could see that perhaps there might be someone who put a jazz album out like that where they just improvise jazz stuff all day. Um, Maybe there's something like that. I've never heard it. Maybe there are some people who have recorded uh, classical stuff like that was written down, but that's nothing like what I'm doing, right? It's all 100% improv. So, oh, Seppo says he'll check it out. He didn't know about it. You can listen to it on YouTube. There's a page. Let me get the page up. I'll put the link here so you can go to the page. And that way you can choose your own forum. That, if you want to do, if you have a Spotify account, you can listen to it there, and or whatever platform that you're using. Um, I did get a boost in sales in my payments, so I'm sure people are listening. When I listened to it, I had to listen to it to edit it. I didn't want any volumes to be low. I actually used they tell you don't use what's it called? When the software mechanically or digitally puts everything at the same volume. I did use that on some of those tracks because I didn't want there to be too much of a difference between one track and the other in terms of volume. So, normalizing, they call it normalizing. You're not supposed to really use normalizing in music, but it works for me for something like that. Seppo says, I have arranged a free tonal piece from the 1950s. I ended up to write it like the original, but there were passages for B flat instruments implementing the G sharp scale, G sharp minor scale. Do you think it should be in harmony? Is it G sharp minor or G sharp major? If it is G sharp major, I would put it in A flat. Wow. Oh, wow. Oh, so you're saying it was there's no key signature. It's just notated with accidentals. Is that what you're saying? I'll tell you what my um okay. What my teacher told me, my composition teacher. Now, he was he was a modern composer in every sense of the word, and he told me that the reason why some composers do this is to create anxiety. And if this is a 1950s composition and the composer actually put that, then that's actually how it should be then, because it's meant to disturb the musicians while they play. And the philosophy was, according to my teacher, the philosophy was if you disturb the students, if you disturb the performers, then that will have an impact on the listening audience. So the composers would write stuff that's technically incorrect, but they would write it that way so that there is anxiety in the performance. So, and I would have to see it to understand exactly what it is, but that's what it's sounding like to me, is that they're trying to create tension in the performance. And if you get rid of the enharmonics, then you get rid of the tension. Yeah, you can send me an example. I would love to look at it. All right, guys, we are out of time. Thank you. As always, I enjoy hanging out with you guys. It's every week is different. And sometimes, if it is the same subject, we go deeper into it from previous weeks. And it's just a pleasure to do this. Um, God bless you guys. Have a great weekend, and we will see you next week. Thank you.